I want to start, like always, by saying thank you for taking the time for this interview. I really appreciate it. And my first question I want to ask is, can you just give a small introduction about who you are?
Sure. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Riste. I am the Jimmy Fallon lookalike, Garen streaming content creator of League of Legends from the LPP. I've been streaming for 6-ish years now, trying to dominate the solo queue ladder. I have near 10 million champion mastery points with Garen, so I'm considered a one trick. And I focus on positive educational content, usually providing chill vibes. And I also coach other Garen players one to one, either publicly or privately, in my own educational coaching sessions. Yeah, I've been. That's about it.
Wow, that is a lot more eloquent than I think I can ever describe myself. So I'm Briikachu. I am a low elo Syndra main. I used to be a Syndra OTP until I decided that playing other champs was more fun when your OTP has a 43% win rate in solo queue. So branched out a little. I play primarily mages and enchanters, though I have picked up a little Garen from the Demacian Spin Boy down there. Um, I primarily focus on like kind of just like a fun, really interactive environment. I really like community-based events and providing like beginner level content to League of Legends players.
I know Rist mentioned that he started playing 6 years ago. Um, no, started streaming 6 years ago, but for how long have you two been playing the game? And what made you decide to start playing the game?
Oh, that's a good question. So I remember playing the StarCraft 2 beta when I was in college. And I remember there was this custom map from the original Pro board that I really liked. It was called Hero Wars. And my friend at the time, Matthew, said, "Hey, you should play this game. It's literally based on that one custom map that you like." I'm like, I gotta try this. I installed League of Legends. I played like 5 games of it, and I never went back to StarCraft 2. That was just it. And I've been addicted to this game ever since.
What year did you start playing Rist?
Was it 2009, 2010? It was right before season 1 was finally commencing, right as the Cali was released for the
Oh
first
my
time.
god. So you had like the really old looking map.
Oh
I
God.
think I downloaded the game in like 2015, played against beginner bots for 2 years because League of Legends people were really mean. Um, Played League for about a year, took 2 years off, and then came back to the game. So I guess in total I've maybe played like 3 or 4 years now.
So we can say that it's been a while. What made you continue playing the game?
Mm, I originally started playing the game with friends, so I used to like pretty much almost only play in 5 stacks or only play against bots. I was very scared of ranked, but all of my friends, like the high elo ones, were silver. So I started to want to play ranked so I could be higher ranked than my friends. And then I realized that I really liked it, then turned to streaming, and now here we are, and I'm addicted to grinding to plat.
What?
I think for I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, what about you, Rist?
Okay, so I suffer from video game addiction. I have suffered from video game addiction. League has always been that game for me. I think this is because like the competitive appeal and also the intensity of the solo queue ladder has always scratched that itch for me in terms of like trying to master a game. And I think I took that like one degree further with just trying to master one individual champion. So I've tried to quit this game many times. I've been unsuccessful in doing so. So I said at some point, I'm like, you know what? I love this game so much, I might as well try to make a living out of it. And well, here I am. I started streaming in 2017, and presently I am still very much addicted to this game. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
So, from your perspective, how hard have you two tried ranking in League of Legends?
You mean like climbing the rank ladder?
Yeah.
I think I've tried tackling the rank ladder every single season possible because like it's the most fun for me, the most exciting and engaging. Like I've tried rotational game modes, I've tried Clash, I've tried ranked pre mid fives, I've even dipped my toes into ARAMs. There's just no better experience. I think the closest thing for me that came super close to the ranked experience for me was Dominion, because Riot Games promised back then that they would flip the switch for ranked in Dominion, and I was getting so prepared for that. But it ended up never happening. The mode just stagnated, and then they got rid of it. Same thing with Twisted Tree Line too. And they had ranked mode, so like that was the closest thing. And then after that, I'm like, you know what? I cannot commit my heart to anything else but ranked, because even if I fall in love with something else, uh, there's no guarantee it's going to stick around. There's just no guarantee. So ranked has been that thing for me every season.
Oh wow. I think this is my fourth season of ranked. So for me, it's kind of always just like I want to get like one step like higher. So someone once told me that if you stay the same rank for more than 2 seasons, you can consider yourself hard stuck. And this would be season number 3 of being gold. So now I'm like really starting to panic about it. But I think what makes me want to climb ranked is like, so if you guys know Amelia Cosplay, she is like the challenger support player. She's like a female content creator, and she gets so much crap for being like boosted, all this stuff. But like there are a lot of challenger support players. This one just happens to be female. So like I want to climb the rank ladder to create more female presence in high elo.
Got it. But from season to seasons, what's your approach? Are you to the type of people to play like for 15 hours a day, like every day, or just like, oh, I'm playing 2 games per week and I don't care about my elo?
Well, I used to be that way. Brienne helped me actually break that cycle. I used to be something called the Scarred Veteran, which is what Riot's classification of my player model type is, where I just keep queuing up for games, and I just cannot end a session unless it's on a win. Like I'll suffer 10 losses in a row, but I am so stubborn, even in my own demise, that I'll get back on the horse and keep on trotting. So that's how I used to be. Now I pace myself so much more. There's even days where I don't even play League of Legends. So like I will stream like 5, 6 days a week, and 99.9% of my games are on stream now. So like when I say my stream time's over, that's when I'm done playing solo queue. So I think my discipline has gotten considerably better, but it used to be really, really bad. I would sometimes stay awake until like 7 o'clock in the morning, just playing the demon hours of solo queue, just because I wanted to push myself harder. And yeah, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, because it's pretty rough.
I think my first season I played enough games to hit silver, so I could consider myself in like the good section of my friends at League of Legends. And then said I really wanted to hit gold one season, failed at it, then hit it the next season. So I guess like the more games I play, the higher I climb, which sounds like really easy, like mindset wise, but like to bring myself to play a lot of ranked, it's really hard because like I think over the years, one thing is like I feel like the game and like the tilt level has gotten way worse, like the toxicity related to League of Legends. So for me, like to I don't think I'd ever be able to play like 10 games in a day because like I would not be playing my best. So I probably play like 5 games max in a day. That's if like all the games go like relatively well, but if I lose like my first two and there's like 2 AFKs, then I'm probably donezo. But I'm playing more days a week, which I think is helping out a lot more.
It's interesting that you say that because that answer is going to be like the centerpiece of my of the rest of the questions. But so what from what I've gathered, you two use well in Rice's case, used to play a lot, but then like reduced his amount of games, and you don't play a lot. But how important is for you to the ELOs? How important is the ELO for you too? Does it have an impact on how you enjoy the game?
I think it does for me, because like after I hit Challenger in season 9, I've always said to myself, I want it back. I want to go ahead and get Challenger every single season. I've been unsuccessful in doing so. Like the closest I've been is Grandmasters, and it was this season. But yeah, I think the ranked fever is something that afflicts many people, and I think like it's definitely like a big insignia to like your success in the solo queue ladder, because that type of credibility opens up a lot of things for you as a player. Sometimes even organizations are actually interested in what rank you are, right? Because it depends on how they cater their content. So for like a streamer, it like ranked is a very lucrative type of thing, and it's just so easy to become intoxicated with your rank, because that's what almost everyone talks about. Like you earn your place in the community with your rank. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. Whether it be like influencing conversations, even Riot games will consider your rank in terms of adjusting feedback. They'll factor in other things too, like, oh, your champion mastery, how long you've been playing the champion for, like, are you actually being logical about what type of thing you're proposing, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's very, very easy to fall into the slope of just caring about rank 24/7. I think that fixation also leads to a lot of frustration and toxicity in the game as it stands today. So yeah, I'd say I'm pretty much embedded with it.
Yeah, I'd say that rank is like pretty important for me as well. Like not necessarily like hitting a high elo, but like for a long time it was I wanted to be better than at least 50% of the player base. And at the time the average rank was silver 2 and I was like I just need to hit gold so that people know no matter what I'm in the top 50%. Then it became like people telling me like, oh, this champ's not busted despite like being the number one ADC on u.gg and all of the like stats websites. And like despite like showing that people being like, oh well you're low elo, so you don't know anything. So then it became like, okay, well I feel like I have to be a high rank for people to listen. And I think since Riss mentioned like content creation, I don't think like necessarily within streamers, but within the League of Legends like content viewing community, there's a lot of gatekeeping with like who should be allowed to create content. Like if you look at like TikToks of anyone diamond like below diamond in the League of Legends community, it's like, oh, like you're piss low, like blah blah blah, like you shouldn't be posting, like nobody cares, like all this kind of stuff. Like, oh, another I don't know, gold, blah blah blah. So I think like that has been like really motivating for people to be like, no, like you can be a content creator, you don't have to be challenger to do that. So I think that's my motivation primarily for ranked.
Yeah,
So we're too high low.
you're right. You're right. So we'll jump right into the what I wanted to ask for this interview. What are your general thoughts on League of Legends in season 13, if I remember correctly?
Well, it's different. I think like the longer you invest into League, the more you understand that Riot wants to change the game every single season. They do not want any individual season to be identical to its previous season. They always want to change something, whether it's for better or for worse. Thankfully, like most of the changes have been good. Like I think like many iterations of things they've done to improve the game have been better for the most part. Like I think like everyone was against like adding plants to jungle, but ended up being a really, really well perceived thing, despite the community's disbelief. Like there were things that ultimately failed, like positional rank, where you would queue up and you get your elo based on what queue you were in, basically like being support EDC, you get individual ranks for that. So that fell through the floor. So they've gone through a lot of trial and error. Where we are right now with season 13, I think the game is in a pretty good state. Although there's a lot of the thing is, the more knowledgeable you are about the game, the more you do see a lot of the flaws. And right now, there's a big disparity between individual power between certain roles and positions. There still is issues with the matchmaking ladder. We are not having like complete uh, equilibrium, I guess, with like autofills. There's still no autofill parity, so you'll have games where people will have 3 autofills, one team will have 1 autofill. For high low players specifically, we're having people that are still for some reason able to bypass the system and duo queue even though they shouldn't be. Being like hit with the safeguard that prevents them from duo queuing. Once he has a certain MMR, there's still obviously the issues of smurfing, which has been going on for years. They tried implementing Smurf queue, and now they're pulling back on it. That we have no idea what they're going to be doing next with it. Count transfers and whatnot. So there's still a lot of ongoing problems, and that can lead a lot of people to like have a very sour feeling with this game. I think like the game is in a pretty good spot, but then at the same time, there's so much more that I think that Riot could be doing to make the game better. So it's kind of like a bittersweet type of feeling right now. You kind of wish that things were more than they were, but it's okay. I'm just gonna say that this season's okay. I kind of liked season 12 a little bit better though. It felt more stable, at least in my opinion.
I think I'd agree there. I think for me, one thing that I do like about season 13 that I don't think they did as well in season 12 is I felt like the last couple of years they were releasing so many new champions and like not so much focusing on like champion balance. I really like that they've been doing mid scopes with champions who kind of like feel like they haven't kept up with the current meta of the game. Like obviously as a Syndra OTP, I'm pretty biased. I'm happy that they're looking at Nico and looking at Zyra and like champs that kind of just seem to like not do super great anywhere in pro play or in solo queue. So I'm appreciating that. I think Riot's done a good job of keeping the game interesting. What I would like to see from that though is like they've made so many changes, right? Like if we just think of the last like 6 years with like the dragon and the map changes, like introducing mythic items, like all the new items you get every season, all the reworks, and then you think of it from the perspective of like a new player. Like Riot still has to cater to getting new people to sign up and play their game, but like as the game gets more complex, it becomes less beginner friendly, and the tutorial system and like the grinding to level 30 when you have to play against like I don't know, Challenger Chad on his new Smurf account, like it's just not really a rewarding system. So I would like to see more to come this year with that. And then I think Riste addressed like, you know, toxicity and like kind of like smurfing. And like if someone's toxic on banned account 32, then you know they've got banned account 33 to log into when they get banned again. So
The legendary tale of ban account 32. We'll always remember that. But
never forget.
yep. The next question, you two touched it a little bit about your complaints, but what complaints or what bad things stood out for you in season 13?
Wait, can you repeat the question?
My question was, what's your major complaints about the game right now?
Okay. Um, I'm I think for me, like it's not about like win rate, and I actually looked at my win rates like 56% on my main champ, which was not expecting considering like my experience with the game lately. I feel like I've been having a lot less fun playing the game recently than I have in previous seasons due to like the toxicity stuff. Because it's like it feels like okay, we have these reporting systems and like we get these feedback reports and everybody like you log in and you get that little bit of like dopamine from seeing them and then you realize, but does it actually matter? Because you still lost the LP, you still demoted. That person probably has another account. Like, so it just feels like the impact and like being able to enjoy the game has gone down. So I think that's my biggest complaint is like the community and like what I perceive to be Riot's like lack of effort in improving that.
What about you, Riz?
I definitely do agree with Rion there. Um, and I kind of want to abstain from talking about like specifically the lane I've been playing lately, which is top lane, because as I referenced earlier, like there's definitely a disparity between power between roles right now, especially when it comes to like ADCs and how they've kind of eclipsed every other role. You know, jungle being as strong as it is, you know, support still being so influential over the map, and mid and top lane just kind of like being kind of stuck in the mud a little bit. But more specifically, I think like my biggest criticisms for season 13 is how Riot's cadence of addressing matchmaking has been completely backwards in terms of like not even just in concept how they implement it, but just the execution of those set concepts, right? Like the biggest example of that I can bring up is removing names of champion select. I was so stoked about that because I really feel like that if less people focus on data mining or prohibited from data mining, they could just focus on the game. There's less people being like salty and rude in champion select because somebody's queuing up with a negative win rate and nobody wants to play with that, so they're gonna go ahead and make a big fuss about it. You know, it drags the game quality down before the game even starts, and that's what has been a big deterrent for League of Legends. But the execution is just was very very like confusing to me because even though they did remove names in champion select, with certain apps you can data mine Riot's API and still get the names of all the other four people that you got paired up with. So unless you've been living under a rock and you're oblivious to that information, it's like the problem wasn't even solved in the first place. So it's like almost like a band-aid fix. It leaves me with a very sour feeling because I really wanted a proper execution where somebody gets into champion select and they can't get that information at all. unless they're stream sniper or ghosting, once they lock in their champion and get into game, like they'll know who they're playing with. Before then, absolutely nothing. So like that was definitely a really big thing. And then also I've talked with devs too, and with Riot's announcements of like trying to like make matchmaking a bit more fair, like autofill parity, right? You know, it would feel fair to me if you have the same amount of autofills on both teams, so at least you know that both teams have a problem that they have to solve. But we're still seeing teams with like very varying amounts of autofills that do not mirror what the enemy team has, and it just feels really backwards. So I feel like that they, in order for them to remove champions like names permanently from the game, they need to fix these other issues first, so players can feel good about queuing up. Because right now I feel like queuing up for League of Legends, unless you have a stalwart personality or you're strong minded, it just feels like a diminishing experience, because instead of enjoying League, you're more so dreading about what could happen. And I guess that's like kind of like the feeling I have right now. So I think that's like my biggest qualm.
So, from what I've gathered from both of your answers, is that you have a lot of complaints, but I want to see on a scale of 1 to 10, how enjoyable is your experience right now?
Playing ranked, like
Yeah.
a 5.5.
Okay.
I'd give it an F.
So I have to extract my biased answer, because if it wasn't for my awesome community, like it would probably be like a 4 or 5 out of 10. Like streaming with a chill community and having music, it elevates the experience. I think that's what the great privilege is of being a streamer in front of a community that supports you and wants to cheer you on. So like it's like most days when I'm playing League of Legends, it's like a 7 to 8 for me. But if I was playing solo queue 10 to 15 games a day by myself alone, it would plummet pretty quickly, because I don't have that support system that my community gives me, because I have a positive League of Legends stream. So yeah, it's probably in that ballpark.
Yeah, right now League seems like a really fun game to play if you're playing norms and you're in a 5 stack with like your friends who aren't gonna like flame or anything, but like the solo queue experience feels like so drastically different.
So it's a pretty bad review that you're giving right now. Would you consider that the quality of games, or the quality of solo queue, or the game in general, has increased or decreased over the years?
I think some things have gotten better. Although, if I'm taking a second to stall myself to think about it, that's also indicative that maybe it hasn't been too much. I feel like I feel like it has gotten worse in some regards too, especially with Right's communication policies and how they had to fix certain things. I mean, some things that like were such a great gift, like fixing the client, um, them redoubling their efforts to fix remakes and AFKs, which hopefully this will be the final time that they need to fix something on that. Um, like, but at the same time too, I don't want to fall into the mental trap of saying like, oh, this season is the worst season it's ever been. It's the worst the game has ever been. This is the most toxic the game has ever been. Because I don't know if there's like a psychological classification for it, but like if we make our assessment based on the present, because that's the most that we remember, compared to looking 5 or 6 years back when the game was probably still as toxic as it was, people were just using different phrases and different ways to troll people. um like I feel like if we were to go back in time with a time machine, it might actually still be the same toxic game that we were known for. It's no more, no less. So at the same regards, maybe the game has gotten worse, but at the same time, maybe it has gotten better, and I'm just not being fully cognizant to it. I'm trying to think of one thing that I really, really do appreciate from Riot. Like, but it was going to be the removal of champion select names. I was so stoked about that. Um, I guess like maybe one thing is like LP mitigation. If you have an AFK on your team, like maybe that's all right, quote unquote. But I know some people are still not satisfied about that, because you know
I
you still
think the
lose
numbers
MMR.
could be different.
Yeah, you still lose MMR. You still get LP. You still have to see defeat. Like that's the
If you're
thing.
in
Like
promos, you still don't promote.
yeah. So like there's been some things that Riot has to done. You know, I think like if I enjoyed Clash and I was an avid Clash player, people rant about Clash being so good all the time. So I think like in a different perspective, you could say that Clash was probably the best thing added to League over the last few years. And I think that that might be the peak Friends equivalent experience of playing League. But for me, as solo queue warrior, I've noticed a lot of stuff just go down in the dumps, and I'm probably not the only one who has to say that. And I don't like being negative and too critical of Riot because I do have appreciation for what Riot has done, especially in supporting my individual career here. But at the same time, I do believe my criticisms are fair towards them and what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think everything about the game is bad, but I do think like to your question of like has the game gotten worse? I think that toxicity has gotten different, right? Like 2 seasons ago, toxicity for in my games was like people yelling all kinds of slurs in all chat. Whereas now the toxicity in the game is a summoner has disconnected and then you play out a 4v5. So like it looks different, right? Like I can mute um toxic Tommy like calling me every name under the sun, but I can't mute him AFKing and then like impacting the rest of the game. So I think it depends on like what kind of toxic you prefer. Like some people are like, oh yeah, like the banter, I love it, like it's great. Like I don't prefer it, but also like it wasn't the biggest deal. Um, However, like there are things you literally like you can't mute, and like once somebody chooses to do it, it's like whatever. I think the coolest thing that Riot has implemented is like that like words that will like auto mute you.
Mm.
Um, I would like to see them take that one step further and like in loading screen or something, you just get the option to just like mute yourself. So that you can't type stuff because I think it's like a little bit ridiculous. Like you're watching a streamer and they have to type like the first four-letter word they think of, and then the system auto mutes them. Where like you can turn chat off. Like that's been a function forever. So that's where I'm at.
All right. So before we start talking about the toxic aspect of the game or toxicity as a whole in the game, I just wanted to give the opportunity for you to say what you like about the game.
So a lot of people don't talk about this, but I've come from a background of trying to get into many competitive games where the game, even though League is still has its flaws, but the game, previous games I've tried investing into the past were just completely ruined because of people cheating and like exploiting the game with some sort of system, whether it be like a script or Game Shark or Action Replay. But I think like one thing I have noticed is if I reflect in how many games I played, I can only really say about 1% of those games are probably ever affected by somebody actually using one of those programs to affect the game. Like, I very, very rarely run into a script error. I think Riot's policies on being able to safeguard their systems and how the game's executed through like cheating and exploiting the game is really, really good. And they've had really good upkeep on that, with some random exceptions. Like, I don't know why it took them like 5 or 6 patches to fix the Scion script where you could change the direction with his ultimate. That was really weird. They must have taken that must have been really hard to solve. I don't know what was going on with that. But I do think that like in a 5v5 game where nobody disconnects, both teams are equally skilled, and I end up losing the game. At least I still have the satisfaction of knowing that the game was somewhat fair and there's stuff that I could have worked on. So I think like that's my personal enjoyment, I think, is that like there's a lot of games that are telling in terms of what I could be maybe doing better. Although it's mixed in with a lot of games that you have to deal with the baloney, right? Oh, it's a 4v5, somebody DC'd. Oh, this person's deciding to run it because they can't handle their cool. Oh, I'm playing versus a bad matchup top lane and I didn't get a single drop of assistance and we invested all of our ganks mid lane and now bot and top is losing and we have like no momentum into the big game. So yeah, like League has always been kind of bittersweet because like to have that peak gameplay, you get that maybe every 4 out of 10 games. You have to endure 6 really bad games to get the 4 really good quality games. Um, so like I think like in terms of the execution of the game, um, I think like that's probably the thing I enjoy the most. At least it there is some level of fairness I think in like the games that I do play. Aside from the matchmaking, aside from the occasional like scripters, aside from the people who occasionally grieve, and I know there's certain things that Riot can't control. You know, like I know they can only go so far with smurfing, right? You know, I mean, I don't think it's feasible for them to require somebody to use a social security number to register an account, like unlike the what they've done in Korea. Um, so I think like my enjoyment for the game is that they do put effort into keeping the game alive despite its criticisms, and I guess that's kind of like where my enjoyment from. It feels like they do care to some extent, and that's what keeps me going, I think. that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, that eventually there'll be this one season where everything's gold and things are actually gradually better. And I guess that's what I keep holding on hope for.
I'm trying to think, and I think one thing I really enjoy about the game right now is like League has always found a way to keep it interesting. And as someone who's like pretty new to reading patch notes, like I don't think I realized like how much changes like every 2 weeks in the game. So that has been good because like I think it's really easy to like play the game 100 times and like play the exact same champion and do the exact same thing and like not try anything new. But like for example, like Riste finds a way to play Garen for like 10 million mastery points worth of games, but every game I watch him feels like a new one. So like I think that is super helpful from like a content creator perspective, that League finds a way to keep things fresh enough that you can always find like new content or new ways to enjoy the game. So like even for all the flack that I'm giving the game right now, like I've still got to say from like a design perspective, I still feel like it's really fun.
Got it. So on that good note, let's dive right into something a little bit less fun and talk about toxicity. So first off, what are your thoughts on the toxicity right now?
I think people see very little punishment for it. Like I don't think that there's like a big enough incentive to A, not be toxic, and two, to actually like go beyond that and actually be like a good summoner. You know, like I think we've known for a long time now that the honor reward system is kind of a joke. Like how many more like Twitch and Warwick skins like can I get? It, honor level 5 like doesn't really mean anything. I think there's a cool back now for it, which I did think was cool at the time, but like I think there should be more to like stand out as like a good human playing the game. Because I think toxicity has a pretty negative impact, especially on new players.
What about yours?
Um, so I think like, well, I wish I could say that there was going to be like some sort of utopic like future that League is going to be this toxic free game, but I think this is just like an issue that almost every online competitive game faces. So there's always going to be a little bit yin to the yang. There's always going to be toxicity in League of Legends. How Riot handles it and how Riot stems the problem is ultimately on them. And like I could say, oh well, the community should do better because like it's up to influencers and also people of the community to also try to be better. But Riot has really the cards on the table in terms of like what systems get implemented, how people get punished, and like what incentives there are for like being above the bare minimum, which is like being like a decent human being in this video game. I think they made a really good effort with the automatic like mute system, where if somebody says something really offensive, that person will get muted. I think like that's a really great start as a concept. They need to expand that much more because right now, as Brienne referenced earlier, right, you can mute someone's chat, but you can't mute somebody trying to derail the game. If they're using chat to antagonize another player, there's nothing you can do to stop that. If they want to keep following that narrative, there's absolutely zero things you can do about that. You can ask them to mute. There's a very low chance that they'll actually listen. Sometimes they do, so you take the shot. But other times they'll just continue uh, arguing, and then you get bothered by it, and then you have to mute them, and then you're wondering if they ever resolved anything. So like, I think they could do a lot more to that. I think I've been an advocate of the amount of messages that one player puts out per game can sometimes be abused because I find in my personal experience that if there's somebody who's typing 200 messages a game, most likely they're using it for not a genuinely good purpose. People will flood the chat with excessive messages to go ahead and flame somebody openly, and I feel like that there should be an improvement in systems to tag or to like time out people from chat who are using messages too much and are just spamming and they're typing more on the keyboard than actually focusing on the game, which is derailing everyone else's experience. So, like, I think there's so much more that Riot Games could be doing. Like, I think various things like improving like player security, like two-factor authentication to help prevent accounts being stolen because someone tried taking my account last week, and like
You
being
did
able.
show your password in front of 100 people.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. But if it wasn't for 2FA, my account would have been gone. Um, and then also like being able to block invites. So like for content creators or anybody, they can't get invites from like people with super offensive names, and just the mute function in Champion Select. That stuff feels really really good. Um, they've also said that Champion Select has been moved to a phase now where reports actually do impact how people get suspended. So like I think that they need to improve clarity on that. So like if there's a report that actually went through in Champion Select, that should be especially marked so people understand how their report actually worked. Because I feel like the instant feedback report maybe also considers Champion Select reports, but a player won't know that it actually worked because you still get the same generic message, I think. So there needs to be a better distinction in that. So like ultimately, I think league's toxicity is never going to go away. I think many can agree with me on that. But there's a lot more they can do to impact a player's safety and also game experience, while also being able to take care of people who are abusing chat way too much and also just blatantly harassing others. Like they can never solve the whole soft inting issue, but they can at least do more to protect the player's experience, I think, in my opinion.
So would it be fair to say that there's not enough incentive to be a good summoner, and is in that there's not enough tools to combat toxicity in game?
Oh
Tools
yeah,
available, yeah. I think
I,
there's a lot of ideas that people have that could improve those systems, but I don't think the tools are currently available to League of Legends players. Sorry, Riss.
Absolutely. I agree with Brianna a lot. I've talked about this on the stream many times before. One of the reasons why people are eager to get a new account is because League of Legends accounts as they stand right now are so disposable. They're unless you have like a super rare skin from like pre-beta days, like maybe you have Black Alistar, you have Silver Kill. Okay, there's definitely value on that account. But if you are this random person who has like maybe 3 Grave skins and 1 Annie skin, and you rank up an account and you decide, you know what, I'm just gonna full send it, run it this game. Who cares if I get banned? I think like there's a ongoing problem that an account, most many accounts may not be valuable enough, and that's what makes them more expendable, disposable. I don't know how Riot Games will fix this solution. I mean, you could just say, let's throw money at the problem. Let's give players more rewards. Let's give more rewards for on level 5, which would make sense. Which would make sense. There'd be actual tangible rewards for being a summoner who just doesn't like run it down, spew racial slurs, and just threaten to unalive people. Um, but yeah, I think that to combat this, if we make more tangible honor 5 rewards, if we make accounts more valuable, then maybe players will think a little bit more before they say, you know what, this account is worthless. I'm just going to get rid of it. Because right now, I think the only thing that chalks up to an account's worth is its MMR and what's its rank, right? Doesn't really matter about the skins in most cases. Doesn't matter like what icons you have and stuff like that. Maybe there's some cool events exclusive stuff and people have attachment to that. Maybe some people are fueled by that. But I think like there's in other situations, people find accounts very disposable. And like besides the whole account creation botting to level up accounts level 30, there's like no real way to I think there's not a tangible way to keep people like invested in continuing to be on one account, right? Because like it's a very common thing right now to have multiple accounts because, there's no reason to just spend time on just one account. And until that problem is fixed, we're going to continue having players just lose accounts and never fix their toxicity and just move on to the next one, like Brienne referenced.
I'm so ready to have Honor 5 only chromas.
That's fair. I forgot to ask a pretty important questions, but I kind of already know what the answer is going to be. But have you ever experienced toxicity, and if yes, how often?
Several times a day, any day that I play League. Yeah, ranging from like the general like smack talk and chat all the way up to like unalive yourself, I'm gonna kill your mom, blah blah blah. The summoner has disconnected. Ari Samira goes 0 and 5 and starts yelling racial slurs at me. Like,
You know what's so crazy? I'll have games where I'm ahead and I'll still find 2 people arguing with each other. It's so incredibly petty and it's so ridiculous. I find it laughable almost because I tell Brian this all the time, but some in solo queue, you can be your own worst enemy. You can literally self sabotage your climb because we will let people get their egos in the way. And with the current systems and being able just to openly chat with your teammates with like no filter other than you saying something that will trigger the self mute system, um, it's just free reign for players. It happens in like 50 to 60% of my games. There will be like occasionally like 30 to 40% of my games where nobody really says a thing other than some small timers. And that's cool. That's chill. That's all that needs to happen, even in a losing situation. But yeah, it happens. It happens a lot. And it's probably been the same ratio for previous seasons too. I don't, maybe there's been some variance in it going up and down, just slight incremental amounts, but it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah.
I wanted to ask Riste a specific question. So you mentioned that you're grandmaster, or you were a grandmaster this season. I was wondering, how does the toxicity manifest itself in your in games?
Oh, okay. That's a really good question. So, as I referenced earlier, like with previous seasons, like in how internet culture evolves in terms of bringing other players down, like, oh, okay, this year we're gonna say sexist things. This year we're gonna say racist things. This year we're gonna say your mom or noob jokes. Like that's how internet culture basically, influences game communities. But for masters and grandmasters specifically, um, yeah, the toxicity alters a little bit because insults basically become catered to what your rank is, and that affects every rank. But like, it'll come down to specifics like, oh, this person's never going to hit GM. This person will stay in Masters forever. Elo inflated because of the changes. We have more people in Masters now than any other season because of the LP changes, right? A lot of people are climbing really, really quickly because of those changes. So as a result, people come up with creative things, and sometimes there's more topical things. Like I remember someone literally flaming another person, being like, "Hey, they added indicators that arrow to tell you what jungle camp you're supposed to start." Just so you know. I don't know if you know, but yeah, that's how you're supposed to jungle, dude. People get really creative with that stuff. So sometimes it'll be topical. Other times it'll be something that's very akin to what has happened other seasons, like, oh, hard stuck, you're boosted. This account is eBay purchased. Um, your mom, so to speak. So there is a little bit of variance when it comes to the individual MMR that I'm in, but it's more so the same song. Like it's either people commenting on your rank, people making an assumption based on your summoner name, whether it be your gender, your stature, your ethnicity, or it's your gameplay. Basically, people calling you a inter, or just report this person times 9. It's more so the same tune. Yeah, not much variance.
Would target inting also be part of the problem too?
Yeah, it is. Although, like, it really can depend on the type of player you are and whether or not you're a content creator. Because as we're noticing right now, I've been hearing on social media, Tyler one just queued up on EOS. He started his rank climb, and there are people literally trying to Q snipe him and run it down. We have people. I think there was the Syndra with 41 deaths in his game. So if you're a content creator or someone who's really well known, despised based on your reputation, it will alter the amount you get targeted. And then there will be games where you are just somebody who's not really well known. You're just another summoner out there, and nobody really knows you well, but you're part of the game where somebody's targeting another person, and you just deal with the residual fallout of that, which unfortunately sucks. Um, People have gotten more creative, though, I think, over the years, because the more you understand the system and how to avoid bans, the more intelligent players are in trying to avoid that, right? Like, in the past previous seasons, before Riot Games made adjustments to their AFK detection, you could walk around in the fountain every few seconds, and that will allow you to dodge the system. Now you can't do that. So as players figure out what Riot's automatic systems are doing to tag players, people get really creative. People will put asterisks in the words and the slurs that they'll use to dodge filters. So that is always going to be present. People are always going to find, okay, what's the next thing I need to do to go ahead and dodge a ban from Riot Games? So it's always the community versus Riot in terms of that. I don't think that's ever going away. I think that this season is just the newest brand of being like, okay, this is the hurdle we have to get over to be our old toxic self. This is just how we have to do it. It's different from last season, but the methodology and how they solve that problem is the exact same thing.
Got it. Do you two consider that Elo contributes to toxicity?
I heard Iron 4 is not so toxic, actually. But other than that, not really.
Yeah, right. Because like you don't know how many bots are in Iron 4 or people who are just trying to like de-rank the account, so they're too busy just trying to sabotage the game. um, I mean, there's a lot of people coming to my chat and be like, "Oh, like look at how chill Risk game is." It'll be the first game that they watch, the only game they watch. Will be like, "Yeah, down here in Gold 2, these games are so toxic. You know, it's just a completely different game down here." And I always call shenanigans on that. There's always like no matter what elo you are, if you're playing with 9 other humans, there is indefinitely it's going to be guaranteed that you're going to have at least one toxic game at some point. So I don't think really elo affects it that much. I do think that there is differences in toxicity and harassment because of culture differences between servers. You know, like how you'll be harassed in EU West is going to be different from how you're going to be harassed in North America. And that's not even talking about like language and like the barriers between that. So I think like that there will still be harassment, but like I don't think that there's going to be like really a difference of toxicity based on elo specifically. Other factors like server and like who you are as a person, yes. Like if you're unfortunately if you're known as a female in the League of Legends community, that's gonna spike your harassment, especially when people strangers recognize you, and it sucks. But like I think everyone who's in gold is subjected to the same type of saying "hee hee, your heart stuck gold" type of argument, you know. So that's just my spiel on that.
All right. So the next question is trying to try to be in someone else's shoes. In this case, Riot. Uh, what step would you like, or do you think Riot should take to combat the current state of the game, or this current state of the community? Let's say.
Go ahead, honey.
Rist and I definitely disagree on this because he's already said he doesn't think we need the social security thing, and I've been saying we should go to social security linked to your accounts, because I'm tired of banned account 32. I also so I think it was like 1 o'clock in the morning when I told Rist this one day, but I was like, okay, anyone who has hit Honor level 5 can now apply for a part-time job at Riot Games where you are like basically doing like the old tribunal but getting paid for it. Which I think would be super cool because one, like then they're getting more manpower that they don't have to give benefits to because it's only part-time. Just thinking from like a monetary perspective, but like then you have more manpower to actually like go through reports and like make decisions about punishments on accounts, and it's like an incentive to be a good summoner, like an actual good summoner. um oh, and I also think like from a content creator perspective, like I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like content creation doesn't like bring in the big bucks or anything, but like let's say you're like a PMA content creator who's probably hit honor level 5 every season, like you can give back to the game, like be affiliated with Riot, like fix the community or help to. Like I think those are like doable steps that are within Riot's budget and like serve both the players, content creators, viewers, etc.
What about you, Rist?
Mom, this is a game called League of Legends. Can I have my social security number to install it, please? Also, I need the last 4 digits of your credit card number so I could buy this thing called skin. Yeah,
Hey, they
thanks,
do it on other
mom.
servers.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Um, yeah, I agree with Brian. I don't personally don't think the social security thing is ever going to be a thing in my opinion, but other than that, I do agree with her on the most part. I think like as I referenced earlier, there needs to be more safeguards in place to prevent people who are deliberately like holistically just ruining games And I think like there needs to be more filter and safeguard systems in place, like terms of like how many messages that people are putting out per game. But I think like they also needs to like focusing more on a positive thing. I would definitely go ahead and either rework the honor system again, or I would add more tangible rewards to it, because as it stands right now, it's kind of like almost a joke in terms of what Honor 5 rewards are. I think the recall is really cool. I think that was a great idea, but as Brienne referenced, there could be so much more cooler stuff that basically gives incentive for players to maybe try to be a decent human being, like Honor 5 chromas, exclusive skins, like getting access to the Blue Essence Emporium, even, like people always say, "Oh, they should add voice chat to League of Legends." Well, you know what I'm gonna say? Unless you're Honor 5, you don't have voice chat enabled, or you can only talk for a certain period of time, or like if you're on level 5, maybe you get a certain amount of messages per game, like almost like a expensive chat restriction. But then people who are on level 0 don't get as many messages. They can moderate games like that. And like I know that that's not a perfect argument, because like it also messes with the game's integrity a bit. But I think like just how like in this country you have a license to drive a vehicle, you should you should have a license to be able to voice chat in League of Legends to some extent. I might be a little radical in my thinking there, but like, you know, these type of like drastic situations require drastic measures. So I think Riot needs to throw like a big boulder at the situation and see what ends up holding. They just got to throw some darts at the wall. They gotta really get pretty crazy with this situations, because things aren't really gonna ever change. They could add another a Warwick chroma into the shop and call it a day, but we know at the end of the day that's not gonna fix anything. It just really isn't, and it makes me so sad inside, because I feel like it's not too much to ask for an Honor 5 chroma. When it comes to like, okay, how many people from Riot, how many people would it take? How much time would be allocated towards such a thing? It doesn't feel like too much. I know people who can even self-mod skids and be able to do their own chromas, and they do it for free off payroll in probably the matter of hours. So it makes me really ponder sometimes as to like so many things that Riot could do that just end up not getting done. And I'm just wondering like what's going on here? Like, is there actually any effort, any care that the community gets better? I feel like right now there's too much focus. Well, I mean, there should be a lot of focus on deterring negative gameplay experience, but there also needs to be equal focus on promoting positive gameplay too. You know, like how the game is supposed to be played, instead of just dealing with the bad all the time. Maybe focus a little bit more on the good, because that's how you can also solve the stigmatism that this game brings up every year. Because like, let's be honest, like League is always talked about as a toxic game. I have to have a mental conversation with myself anytime somebody asks the question, Rist, should I install League of Legends? And you know what? I have to have an internal battle with myself, being like, this could be the single greatest or worst thing I could ever do to this person. And you know why? It's because of the game's toxicity. If there was cool incentives, more safeguards for players, if there was actual ways to feel good and to be protected as a positive player, I would think differently. But now I have to say, you know what? I think it's not worth it. You heard of Minecraft? You should try that game out. You won't get flamed and told that your mom's going to be unalive, or something implying a rope. You could have a fun experience. But League of Legends, it's different. It's different. And I rest my case on that.
All right. The next set of questions might sound weird, but you probably will see where this is going. So we're going to talk about pro play. My first question is, how much do you pay attention to pro play?
Well, I've had my head stuck in the sand about pro play for multiple years. Like I think like the biggest thing that gets me interested in pro play is when my champion's locked in, which isn't often statistically. Sometimes like there'll be like a cool moment like that I'll catch, or something highlighted that gets featured in other compilations of pro play clips versus what streamers do. So I don't get to watch pro play that much, because I feel like I just don't have as much time to go ahead and rewatch every single game that gets played and stuff like that. And I will be an individual who want to do that if I wanted to be investing in pro playing. So sometimes I'll catch worlds for a bit. I'll watch a few games, But unlike another League of Legends player, I'm not too interested in pro play. Only when something really topical happens that shakes up the equation that I'm ever spurred into watching games. Most recently, it was Evil Geniuses and Someday locking in Garen top lane that really spurred me to go ahead and not only watch the game but review it on my YouTube channel as well. So I'm gonna say occasionally.
Okay. I actually used to live like 20 minutes from the LCS studio, so like season 7, season 8, I actually went to like watch in person quite a bit. I was there for the day that they had 5 tiebreakers. I know we were pretty close to having that this year as well. But I think like ever since I moved away from like Los Angeles, Santa Monica, like it's definitely been less. I think the experience of like going in person is just so different from viewing online. And I think like if I had never gone in person, I would be more interested in watching pro play from home now. But sometimes I'll watch it with my community. Actually, for the most part, I keep up with like the Twitter drama because I think that's always pretty funny. I make some thumbnails for some content creators who review pro play, so that's like the extent of my knowledge. We do like LCS predictions and I always pick random teams based on the ones that I like. So you know, I'm always gonna vote for like Evil Geniuses, Golden Guardians.
I just died inside a little after hearing that, but that's fine. Um, I think we'll all agree that sometimes, especially regarding your champ, Brienne, that the meta is heavily influenced by pro play. Do you think it should be?
Not to the extent that it is currently. Like, I think most recently, what was it? Heimerdinger support. Somebody played in, I don't even know what region, but then we start seeing it in these random gold 4 games. And it's like, there's a very big difference between a pro player who like understands the strengths and weaknesses of a champion and how to use it in a certain role and like using it as a really cool off meta pick. There's a difference between that and like, I don't know, lady League of Legends player like first timing it in ranked. I think that there should be like some metrics or something. I don't know exactly how to figure it out, but like I don't think you should be allowed to randomly first pick a champion and because you saw it on TV. Like I think it's a little bit of a waste of time unless you actually play it. Do I think there should be more Garen players because someday played Garen? Like, sure, sure, I think it's cool. But like go play it in norms, like go play it in flags.
True.
What about you, Rist?
So I've accepted that pro play is always going to influence solo queue because if the pros do it, the best of the best, you know, why can't I do it in my solo queue game? And if I lose and learn from it, it doesn't matter, you know? It's okay. Sure, maybe my 4 other teammates suffered because of it, but I don't care about them. I don't know them. You know, I'll even spew some baloney type of flame towards them. Not saying well, I'm going to actually do that, but I'm just modeling myself after the next player. I think, well, Riot has stated this that they've always considered like making the game different for pros, where pros play on a patch, where basically certain champions are balanced because of pro play being too dominant. So like if we saw that hypothetically, like a zero would be much weaker in the pro play patch than it would be in solo queue because a zero is only really an issue in pro play. But Riot has also stated that they're not looking to do that. They want the game to be picked up by anybody in the same type of medium that is played on the pro player stage. You know, similar to like I don't know, picking up a basketball and playing like a game of basketball on your local court compared to like maybe the pros do in NBA. Yeah, sure, like the stadium's different, but you can still kind of play almost the same game. So I think because of that and how like the gates are open in terms of like being able to lock in anything that the pros play pick, you can always. I think there always is going to be pro player influence on what happens in solo queue, to some regard, and it happens vice versa too. You know, there is solo queue players that influence pros. I remember in season 9, Reckless reaching out for me personally because he wanted to have advice on how to pilot Garen bot lane because Yuumi was the champion to lock in back then before Worlds ran out rolled up. That was the year that Yuumi was released, and she was super broken. So it's a circle of influence. I think solo queue influences pro play, and then as a result, influences solo queue, and vice versa. and I think that it's a cool aspect that I think that's always going to be part of the game. Do I think it should be happening as much? I really don't. I really don't know. I think it's cool. I do see the problems with it too, like how Banner of Command was starting to get being picked in Proplay, and then everyone started building it, even for reasons that shouldn't in solo queue, and then the item ended up getting removed because of it. Because Riot's like, I don't know how to fix this. This is happening way too quickly. We're just going to go and remove the item from the situation. So there is some big fallout sometimes when situations like that happen. But ultimately, I think I've accepted it to be part of the game. I think it's a rather cool thing. I try not to shun it. I think it's really cool how what solo queue players can do to influence pros and vice versa. Is just a really, really cool ecosystem, I think.
All right. So the last question that I want to ask is, what are your wishes for the future
For us or for the game?
for the game? Yeah.
You
Well,
can go first.
I think I'll speak for everybody that matchmaking hopefully gets fixed. Like we see autofill parity, we see champion select names being removed from Riot's API so people can't data mine anymore. There's better safeguard systems in place to prevent negative gaming. I'm not saying that they can fix everything, but they just continue to work on the stuff that can be prevented. Like the worst feeling you have as a League of Legends player is just knowing in the back of your head, Riot could do something about this. Even if you're thinking reasonably, you can always say to yourself, Riot can do something about this. It's all just about a matter of when. So I'm waiting for the day that eventually happens, so that way toxicity in this game can be curved a little bit, and we can maybe focus more on positives. I hope that they re-incentivize or rework the honor system again. Um, like the Honor Recall was a great addition, but they shouldn't be stopping there. And there should always be active developers working on the behavioral systems of League. I don't agree that they need to go on hiatus and work on other stuff. They should always be present because the ecosystem and community of League is something that's ever thriving and could ultimately die along with the game if it just goes too long unchecked. I think anybody can really agree about that. And Riot's been taking this weird stature that they just go ahead and delegate resources from other teams to like make a behavioral systems like initiative and make big changes. I think there should always be devs on duty to make the next big step for improving the game. So I hope that that will be the reality that we see in the future. Um, yeah, I think that that's all I could ever really hope for for me to continue playing this game. Go ahead.
Yeah. I definitely agree about incentives for honor level. I think like if there's actually something being done when my champion select report goes through, I would like to get a feedback report for that. Like, because right, it's like the box is like, oh, your report that a player abused text chat, did I don't know AFK, like something like that. Like they changed like 3 words of the report. Like your report of a player doing something in champion select. Like that's all I need, just to feel like what I do actually has impact. And then like transparency. I think like the communication, even with like patch updates, right? It's like, okay, you have to look at Freak's Twitter and then go to Riot Froxend, and then I don't even know who the third guy, but really everyone's looking at Spider Axe. Like that is just such a convoluted system to get the patches. Even when I Google like League of Legends patch notes, I have to like sift through it. I feel like it just shouldn't be that difficult. So like Riot's communication channels could be a lot clearer. And then to take that a step further to like say clear communication about what is being done to improve the state of the game, no matter if that's toxicity, champions that they think is really unfair, etc.
All right. Well, that's all the question I had in mind. One last thing. Where can we find you?
You
Ionia.
can find me at twitch.tv/Riste or on
Nice.
YouTube at Riste.
Ooh.
Raste, by the way.
Or on TikTok as wristband.
Yeah, it's a play on words. All right. Where can we find you, Briikachu?
You can find me at twitch.tv/Briikachu with 2 eyes because one eye is taken.
Well, thank you for taking the time for this piece for this interview, and I wish you all the luck and a good night. A good
Thank
day.
you for
So much
having
for
us.
having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.